Chapter 41. Check in. Ivory Hecker's radio crackled to life with the now familiar voices of Adams and Natasha. "Ivory, this is Blackbird. We've got the remaining drives loaded up on the Black Hawk. Natasha and I are checking the cargo for any damage. Over." Adams radioed, standing in the sprawling fields of rural Iowa. Ivory's voice, tinged with relief, responded promptly. "Blackbird, good to hear from you. Ensure those drives are secure. They're our lifeline. Over." "Roger that, Ivory," Adams replied. "We've got 'em packed tight. Natasha's giving him a final check now. Over." Natasha's voice chimed in, her tone calm and professional. "The drives look intact. No visible damage, and integrity seems solid. We're ready to lift off, Ivory. Over." Ivory nodded to herself, relieved that the critical drives they had retrieved remained unscathed. The Black Hawk had proven its worth on their mission, and now it was their trusted ally in delivering these drives back to President Jackson. "Excellent work, both of you. See you back at base camp. President Jackson and others are eager to get their hands on them. Stay safe out there. Over." Adams acknowledged her instructions. "Understood, Ivory. We're firing up the engines now. We'll see you at the base camp. Over and out." With the transmission complete and the Black Hawk en route, Ivory felt a surge of anticipation. The drives had already changed the course of the war, offering hope and momentum to their cause. Her gaze swept across the bustling command center at Presidential Base Camp, her thoughts ignited by the endless possibilities that these newfound drives held. They could serve as the key for coordinating their widespread efforts to liberate the West Coast and beyond. Ivory's voice resounded over the radio, crisp and determined. "Drives are en route. Prepare for their arrival and notify President Jackson." A swift response crackled through the airwaves. "Copy that. We're on high alert." With that matter settled, Ivory shifted her attention to the next item on her checklist, contacting the Vanguard. She keyed the radio once more, a hint of nostalgia tugging at her as she remembered Tank's struggles with the older communication equipment. "Vanguard, this is Ivory Hecker. Over." After a moment of static, a familiar voice echoed back. "Ivory Hecker, Lima Charlie. This is Vanguard. Over." It was Sarah's voice, a testament to the progress they had made in enhancing their communication capabilities. "Vanguard, we have air support coming soon to your location. What's your current situation?" Ivory's voice carried a sense of urgency as she sought to assess their condition. A weary voice responded over the radio, bearing the weight of their ongoing struggle. "Ivory, this is Riker. We could sure use that air support sooner rather than later. What's the ETA? Over." Ivory understood the gravity of their situation and the importance of the upcoming mission on Victor's compound. Still, she didn't want to dampen their spirits, so she replied with resolve. "2 days at most, Riker. Can you hold on? Over." Her words were that of reassurance, a promise that help was on the way. Seconds ticked by like an eternity as Ivory waited for Riker's response. Finally, the radio crackled to life, and Riker's voice, tinged with fatigue, came through. "We'll do our best. We have the facility's entrance point, but they are throwing everything they have at us from the south to retake it. Over." Ivory couldn't help but feel a sense of helplessness, but all she could offer was encouragement as she keyed the microphone, her voice firm and supportive. "Riker, hold in there. Things are moving fast in our favor, and help is coming." "Roger that," Riker replied, and then a sudden explosion transmitted over the radio. Ivory listened, her heart heavy, as Riker continued. "Keep us updated, Ivory. Vanguard, out." Knowing that Riker and his Vanguard had been enduring a difficult battle with heavy losses and little support, Ivory could only pray that they would reach them in time. She quickly passed on her update about the southern battle and proceeded to contact Karnak to coordinate their efforts and push forward. Ivory's voice held a hint of concern as she addressed Karnak, who had been in the middle of intense fighting. "Sidewinder, this is Ivory Hecker. Over." To her surprise, Karnak's calm response came through the radio. "Ivory Hecker, this is Sidewinder. Was just about to make contact. Over. Listening intently, Ivory inquired about their current situation, knowing that the battle near the Chinese headquarters must have been fierce. Sidewinder, what is your current status? Over. Karnik's voice remained clear as he provided an update. Ivory, we are rounding up prisoners. Enemy HQ is under our control, and we are attempting to sort out something strange that happened here. Over. Ivory's curiosity was piqued, and she probed further. Sidewinder, what was that? Suddenly, Angelique's voice broke in, disregarding radio communication etiquette. Ivory, this is Angelique. Sierra ran off with some guy who seems to be heading up all this chaos. They tore down the tunnel in a limousine, so we're trying to figure out why. Ivory couldn't help but feel a little surprised and deep concern at the unexpected turn of events. She knew that Sierra had always been a wild card, but this development raised more questions than answers. Ivory, taken aback by the revelation, couldn't believe what she was hearing. Good to hear your voice, Angelique. Who did she leave with? Angelique's response contained crucial details. Tall, light brown hair, dressed in a business suit. Robert said he has blue eyes. As Ivory processed this information, a picture of Victor Roche appeared on her monitor, standing next to the man they described, with the subtitle, Victor Roche and son Eckhard. The implications of Sierra's actions began to sink in, and Ivory couldn't help but feel a sense of worry. Angelique, that is Victor Roche's son. What the hell is Sierra doing? Ivory asked, her voice tinged with panic. Angelique's reply was concise. Unknown, Ivory. We will keep you updated. Over. Ivory knew they needed to find out more about Sierra's intentions. As she continued making calls gathering information on other areas of operation, her thoughts inadvertently meandered back to obscure days that initiated their current state of survival, days irreversibly engraved into her being. In her mind's eye, she could still vividly perceive the day the UN enacted weapon confiscation, the day authoritative figures invaded her abode to confiscate their armaments, her husband's defiant resistance, instigating a fatal altercation. In the resultant havoc, his life had been extinguished, leaving Ivory to silently witness the fall of her beloved, betrayed by the very government whose duty was to safeguard them. The reverberation of that dreadful day persists, an incurable lesion on her soul. She found herself a solitary combatant. Then came the EMP devastation enshrouded the nation in an enveloping void, catapulting humanity into an era stripped of technological consolations. The subsequent chaos was inconceivable. Deprived of electrical sustenance, societal structures crumbled, and trepidation spread insidiously. Individuals, stranded, were thrust into a world where anarchy reigned supreme, with her bearing witness to the annihilation of societal norms. In those initial phases of altered reality, mere survival was the solitary pursuit. Ivory, immersed in the quest for essential provisions and sanctuary, was perpetually vigilant against the opportunist entities spawned by this realm of anarchy, a domain where threats were all over. Now she sit within the nerve center. Ivory's thoughts lingered on the significant strides made since those grim dawns. The rebellion had fortified, the unyielding struggle to regain their homeland steadfast. The tormenting memory of her husband's ultimate sacrifice and the ensuing societal collapse fortified her allegiance to the rebellion and that of President Jackson. Inhaling deeply, Ivory redirected her thoughts to the pressing predicaments. New drives, significant instrumentalities for war, were in their possession, shining as fragments of hope in a world immersed in despair. And Ivory harbored an unswerving resolve to guide this endeavor to its conclusive victory.